The massive alien ship hung in space like a dark mountain. Its hull stretched for miles, covered in strange symbols that glowed with cold blue light. Inside the human lunar station, Commander Hanwoo Kim watched the screens with growing worry. 12 more ships just like it waited at the edge of Earth's solar system. Dr. So-Young Park stood beside him, her hands shaking as she read the translation data. "They call themselves the Galactic Council," she said quietly. 12 different alien races working together. They've been ruling the galaxy for thousands of years. Admiral Jamin Lee walked into the command center, his face hard as stone. Behind him came the alien ambassador, a tall creature that looked like it was made of living crystal. The alien's body sparkled with inner light, and when it spoke, the words came out like music. But the message was anything but beautiful. "I am Ambassador Veltharion of the Crystalline Hegemony," the alien said through the translation device. "I speak for the Galactic Council. Your species has violated Council space. You will surrender immediately." Commander Kim stepped forward. "We didn't know this was your space. We're explorers, not invaders. We can talk about this." The crystal alien made a sound like breaking glass. It was laughing. "Talk? You think you have choices here? No species talks to the Council as equals. You are primitive. You are new. You will obey." Dr. Park tried to keep her voice calm. "We understand you're more advanced than us. But surely we can work together. We have things to offer. Our art, our culture, our different way of thinking. Your culture?" Veltharion's light grew brighter with amusement. "What could babies teach their elders? What could insects teach those who fly among the stars?" Admiral Lee's jaw tightened. "What exactly are you demanding?" The alien turned to face him fully. "Complete surrender. You will give us all your military ships. You will accept council governors on all your worlds. Your people will work where we tell them to work. Your leaders will do what we tell them to do. You have 72 hours to agree. And if we refuse?" Commander Kim asked. Veltharion's crystalline form pulsed with cold light. "Then we destroy your major cities from orbit. Your people die. Your civilization ends. This is how it always goes. Every species learns this lesson eventually." The humans looked at each other. Dr. Park felt sick to her stomach. Admiral Lee's hands clenched into fists. Commander Kim stared at the tactical display showing the alien fleet positions. "How many species have you done this to?" Dr. Park asked. 847, Veltharion said proudly. "All chose wisely in the end. Some took longer to understand, but they all surrendered. The strong rule the weak. This is the natural order." Admiral Lee stepped closer to the alien. "The natural order? Is that what you call bullying entire civilizations into slavery?" "Slavery?" The alien's light flickered with confusion. "We bring order. We bring peace. We prevent wars. Under council rule, species prosper. They have everything they need. Everything except freedom," Commander Kim said. "Freedom is chaos," Veltharion replied. "Freedom is war. Freedom is suffering. The council ended such primitive concepts long ago." The alien moved toward the exit. "You have 72 hours. Use them wisely. Consider what happened to the Altarian Empire when they chose resistance. Consider what happened to the Vegan Republic when they thought their technology could match ours. Consider what happened to the Proxima Alliance when they believed courage was enough. What happened to them?" Dr. Park asked, though she feared the answer. "They no longer exist," the alien said simply. "Their worlds are empty. Their names are forgotten. Only we remember them now as warnings to others." After the alien left, the three humans stood in silence. The weight of the decision pressed down on them like a physical thing. Outside the station's windows, Earth hung blue and beautiful in the darkness. 7 billion people lived on that world. They had no idea that their entire future was being decided in this small room above their heads. "We need to contact Earth Command immediately," Admiral Lee said. "The President needs to know." Commander Kim nodded, but his mind was already working on other problems. "So young, what do we know about their technology?" Dr. Park pulled up data files on her tablet. "Their ships are huge, but they seem to rely on energy shields and plasma weapons. Nothing we haven't theorized about. But the power levels," she shook her head. "Each of their ships could probably destroy our entire fleet." "Probably isn't certainly," Commander Kim said. Admiral Lee looked at him sharply. "Hanwoo, you're not thinking of fighting them, are you? You heard what he said. 847 species. All surrendered." "All surrendered so far," Commander Kim corrected. "Maybe they just haven't met the right species yet." Dr. Park looked between the two men. You're both talking about war, against ships that could wipe out our cities, against technology we can't match. Maybe we can't match their technology, Commander Kim said slowly. But I keep thinking about something that Crystal Thing said. 847 species all surrendered. All chose to live as slaves rather than die as free people. That's the smart choice, Admiral Lee said, but his voice lacked conviction. Is it? Commander Kim turned to look at Earth again. My grandfather fought in the Korean War. He used to tell me stories about facing impossible odds, about choosing to fight even when victory seemed impossible. He said sometimes the most important battles aren't the ones you can win, they're the ones you can't afford to lose. Dr. Park felt tears in her eyes. But the cost, all those people, the cost of fighting might be death, Commander Kim said quietly. But the cost of surrender is something worse. It's forgetting what it means to be human. The communication panel buzzed. Earth Command was calling for their report. In a few minutes, the leaders of humanity would learn that their species faced the same choice that 847 others had faced before them: submit and live as slaves, or resist and probably die as free people. Commander Kim looked at his companions one more time before answering the call. He thought about his grandfather's stories. He thought about the crystal aliens' casual dismissal of human worth. He thought about the 7 billion people below who deserved the right to make their own choices. The Council expected humanity to follow the pattern, expected them to be reasonable, expected them to choose survival over principle. They were about to learn that humans had never been particularly reasonable, and they had definitely never been particularly predictable. The Council fleet waited in perfect formation around Earth's solar system. Admiral Velcanis of the Hegemony watched his screens with bored confidence. In 36 hours, the humans would surrender. They always did. The pattern never changed. His sensor officer, a 6-armed creature from the Nexus worlds, chittered softly. Admiral, the human vessels are moving. Expected, Velcanis replied without looking up from his reports. They're probably trying to evacuate their leadership. Standard panic response. Have our picket ships move closer to discourage any escape attempts. But Captain Minho Choi wasn't trying to escape. His cargo vessel, the Sole Trader, drifted slowly toward the alien picket line with 5 other merchant ships. To the alien sensors, they looked exactly like what they claimed to be: slow, harmless cargo haulers trying to flee the system. Engineer Yujin Song watched from her hidden command center in the asteroid belt. Around her, dozens of displays showed the carefully planned deception that humanity had been building for 20 years. Ever since they first detected alien signals, Earth's governments had prepared for this moment. Phase 1 is go, she said into her communicator. All ships implement Protocol 7. Across the solar system, humanity's real fleet began to move. Lieutenant Dayun Yang gripped the controls of her fighter as it launched from what the aliens thought was a mining station. Around her, 200 more fighters emerged from asteroid hiding places, space stations, and cargo ships. The aliens had counted 40 human vessels in the system. They were about to discover there were actually over 1,000. Captain Choi's cargo ship was the first to reveal its true nature. The hull panels slid away to expose missile launchers and particle beam cannons. The Sole Trader wasn't a merchant vessel at all. It was a heavily armed warship disguised as a cargo hauler. The alien picket ship captain barely had time to raise shields before Choi's first salvo tore through its hull. The explosion lit up space like a new star. What in the 7 nebulae was that? Admiral Velcanis demanded as alarms began screaming throughout his flagship. The human cargo ships, his sensor officer replied, voice filled with confusion. They're not cargo ships. They're warships. Very advanced warships. More explosions bloomed across the system as humanity's hidden fleet engaged the Council forces. The aliens had expected primitive chemical rockets and basic fusion drives. Instead, they faced antimatter torpedoes, quantum disruptors, and weapons that shouldn't have existed according to their intelligence reports. Lieutenant Yang's fighter squadron hit the alien formations like angry wasps. Her ship was smaller than a single gun turret on the enemy vessels, but it moved like lightning and struck like thunder. The aliens' massive plasma cannons couldn't track targets that moved so fast and fought so dirty. Dragon Leader to all fighters. Yang called over the comm. Remember your training. Hit and run. Use their size against them. Make them angry. Her squadron dove between the alien ships, firing at weak points and communication arrays. When the big ships turned to follow them, Other human units struck from different angles. It was chaos, but it was planned chaos. Engineer Song watched the battle from her command center and smiled grimly. The aliens fought like they expected civilized warfare: formations, tactics, rules of engagement. They clearly expected their enemies to fight the same way. Humans had different ideas about warfare. Captain Choi's ship took heavy damage from an alien cruiser, but instead of retreating, he did something the aliens never expected. He accelerated directly toward the enemy vessel, using his ship as a guided missile. The Soul Trader's fusion reactor overloaded on impact, taking both ships out in a blinding explosion. "Sir," the alien sensor officer said, his voice shaking, "they're using suicide attacks. They're ramming our ships with their own vessels." Admiral Velkanis felt something cold in his stomach. Suicide attacks were barbaric, uncivilized. No rational species would throw away lives so carelessly. "How many ships have we lost?" 14 picket vessels, 3 cruisers, and... The officer paused. "Sir, they're doing something to our communications. Our fleet coordination is breaking down." Lieutenant Yang's team had been busy. While the main battle raged, small human ships had been attaching devices to the alien vessel's communication arrays. Now the Council fleet found their ships isolated, unable to coordinate their attacks. It got worse, much worse. The asteroid belt suddenly came alive with massive construction platforms that had been hidden for years. Engineer Song's secret project revealed itself as dozens of shipyards began launching wave after wave of fresh human fighters and bombers. "Impossible," Admiral Velkanis whispered. "Our intelligence said they had no industrial capacity beyond their homeworld." "Sir," his tactical officer called out. "Emergency transmission from Council Command. They're demanding an immediate report on our status." Velkanis looked at his tactical display. In 6 hours of fighting, he had lost over 60 ships to a fleet that wasn't supposed to exist. The humans weren't following any known patterns of behavior. They weren't trying to minimize casualties or preserve their infrastructure. They were fighting like wild animals with advanced technology. "Tell Council Command that we are encountering unexpected resistance," he said finally. The worst part wasn't the losses, it was the humans themselves. They screamed battle cries as they died. They laughed as they launched suicide attacks. They treated their own deaths as victories if they could take an alien ship with them. Lieutenant Yang's fighter was finally caught by an alien plasma burst. Her ship was dying, life support failing, but she didn't try to escape. Instead, she aimed her crippled fighter at the alien flagship's bridge and accelerated. "This is Dragon Leader," she said over the open comm channel that both fleets could hear. "Tell your council that humanity sends its regards." Her ship struck the alien bridge like a bullet. The explosion knocked out the flagship's command center and killed Admiral Velkanis instantly. Engineer Song watched the battle reports with grim satisfaction. The aliens were learning a hard lesson. They had expected to fight a civilization. Instead, they were fighting something much more dangerous, a species that refused to accept defeat. "Ma'am," one of her technicians called out, "the alien fleet is trying to withdraw to the outer system." "Let them go," Song replied. This was just the first lesson. Phase 2 begins when they call for reinforcements. She turned to her communications officer. "Send a message to Earth Command. Tell them the demonstration was successful. The aliens now know that humans don't surrender." As the surviving Council ships limped away from Earth, they carried with them news that would shock the galaxy. For the first time in 1,000 years, a species had not only refused to surrender, they had actually hurt the Council fleet in battle. The aliens had thought they were dealing with another primitive species ready to be absorbed into their empire. Instead, they had encountered something unprecedented in galactic history. They had encountered humans at war, and humans, it turned out, were very good at war. The Galactic Council chamber on Nexus Prime had never seen such chaos. Representatives from 12 different species argued, shouted, and demanded answers. The massive holographic display in the center of the room showed the battle reports from the Sol system, and none of them could believe what they were seeing. Council Prime Minister Zeth Kohler, a tall being with skin like silver metal, called for order. His voice echoed through the chamber with authority that had commanded respect for 300 years. But today even his ancient power seemed shaken. "Silence," he commanded. "We will address this crisis with dignity." Ambassador Wu Jin Kang sat in the small chair reserved for new species. "Until yesterday, Nobody had paid attention to the human representative. He was just another primitive delegate from a backward world, invited to watch the council's deliberations but never allowed to speak. Now every eye in the chamber was on him. The human fleet destroyed 67 council vessels, announced War Minister Takmor, his forearms gesturing wildly. 67. No species has ever inflicted such losses on council forces. It must be a mistake, insisted Science Coordinator Velthara. The intelligence reports clearly stated that humans possessed only primitive technology. Chemical rockets and basic fusion drives. Kang stood up slowly. His simple black suit looked plain compared to the elaborate robes and ceremonial armor worn by the other delegates. But when he spoke, his voice carried across the chamber clearly. "Honored Council," he said in perfect galactic standard. "Perhaps your intelligence was incomplete." Prime Minister Zethkalar's silver face turned toward the human. "You will not speak unless given permission, representative of Earth." "With respect," Kang replied. "I believe the time for asking permission has passed." A shocked silence filled the chamber. No new species had ever addressed the council so directly. It simply wasn't done. General Hewan Shin watched the council proceedings from her command ship in deep space. Around her, the human ghost fleet hung invisible in the darkness between stars. For 5 years, her ships had been moving into position throughout the galaxy, using stealth technology the council didn't know existed. "Ma'am," her communications officer called softly. "The council chamber feed is live. Ambassador Kang is about to deliver the message." Shin nodded. "All ships stand ready. If they reject our terms, we proceed to Phase 3. Back in the council chamber, Kang pulled out a small device. The council security systems should have prevented any weapons from entering the chamber, but the device in his hand wasn't a weapon. It was something far more dangerous to the council's peace of mind. "Honored Council," Kang said, "my government has asked me to present you with updated information about human capabilities." He activated the device. Holographic displays appeared around the chamber, showing star maps of the entire galaxy. Red dots began appearing on the maps, thousands of them. Each red dot represents a human vessel currently positioned in one of your home systems, Kang said calmly. "We've been watching you for quite some time." Council representatives began shouting in panic. The displays showed human ships near their most important worlds, their military bases, their industrial centers. Ships that had somehow appeared without detection. "Impossible," War Minister Thakmor roared. "Our sensors would have detected any invasion fleet." "Your sensors are designed to detect conventional starships," Kang replied. "They're not designed to detect vessels using dimensional phase technology. Dr. Bo-Ra-Nam's breakthrough had taken 20 years to perfect." While the Council had focused on bigger ships and more powerful weapons, human scientists had learned to make their vessels exist slightly outside normal space. To most sensors, the Ghost Fleet simply wasn't there. "What do you want?" Prime Minister Zethkalar demanded. Kang's expression didn't change. "Complete withdrawal of all Council forces from the Sol system, recognition of human sovereignty over our territory, and an end to your expansion into what you call the Outer Rim." "The Outer Rim contains dozens of star systems," Science Coordinator Velthara protested. "Rich worlds, valuable resources. The Council has claimed those territories." "The Council claims many things," Kang said, "but claiming and keeping are different matters." He activated another function on his device. The holographic displays changed to show detailed scans of the Council's homeworlds, their cities, their military installations, their civilian populations. "Your fleets are powerful," Kang acknowledged, "but they're designed to fight other conventional fleets. They're not designed to fight an enemy that can appear anywhere, anytime without warning." General Shin received the signal from the council chamber. It was time for the demonstration. "Target the uninhabited system designated as Kepler 438, she ordered. "Fire quantum disruptor, minimum yield." Her weapons officer hesitated. "Ma'am, even minimum yield will destabilize the entire system." "I'm aware of that," Shin replied grimly. "Fire." Light years away, a human ship dropped out of dimensional phase near a distant star. The star had no planets with life, no council installations, nothing but empty space and solar radiation. It was perfect for what they needed to do. The quantum disruptor torpedo was smaller than a fighter craft, but it carried technology that made fusion bombs look like firecrackers. When it struck the star's core, it began a chain reaction that would take several hours to complete. Back in the council chamber, Kang was still speaking when the alert signals began blaring. "What is that?" Prime Minister Zethkalar demanded. His aide rushed over with a data pad. The Prime Minister's silver face went pale as he read the report. "The Kepler 438 system," he said slowly. The star is going supernova." "Stars don't just go supernova," Science Coordinator Velthara protested. "Not unless they're at the end of their natural life cycle. Kepler 438 should have burned for another billion years." Kang touched his device again. New data appeared on the displays. Technical specifications for humanity's stellar manipulation technology. "It would have," Kang said quietly. "We changed its schedule." The chamber erupted in chaos again. The implications were staggering. If humans could trigger stellar collapse, they could destroy entire solar systems. No defense could stop a supernova. "You're threatening to destroy inhabited worlds?" War Minister Thakmor demanded. "We're demonstrating that we can," Kang corrected. "Whether we do depends entirely on your choices over the next few hours." Prime Minister Zethkalar felt the weight of galactic history pressing down on him. In 3,000 years of council rule, no species had ever challenged them so directly. The humans weren't just refusing to surrender, they were dictating terms. "This is madness," he said. "You would destroy yourselves along with everyone else." Kang smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. It wasn't a pleasant expression. "Prime Minister," he said, "you've clearly never studied human history. We've been destroying ourselves in creative ways for thousands of years. The difference is that now we have the technology to take others with us." He gestured toward the star map still floating in the chamber. "Every council species has families, children, futures they want to protect. You've built a civilization based on the assumption that all rational beings will choose survival over principle." Kang's voice grew harder. "That assumption just became very dangerous, because humans have never been particularly rational, and we've never cared much about the odds when we're fighting for something that matters." The council chamber fell silent as the representatives realized what they were facing. For the first time in their long history, they had encountered a species that seemed genuinely willing to choose mutual destruction over surrender. The question was no longer whether the humans could be conquered. The question was whether anyone would survive the attempt. The combined council fleet was the largest military force assembled in galactic history. Over 10,000 warships from 12 different species moved through hyperspace toward the Sol system. Council Command had declared this the final solution to the human problem. Fleet Admiral Xiongho Bai watched the approaching armada from his command ship, the Inchen's Pride. The human fleet looked pathetically small by comparison, barely 300 vessels against 10,000. Any rational commander would have already surrendered. Dr. Yoonji Lim worked frantically in her laboratory aboard the research vessel, Daegu Science. Her dimensional cascade weapons had never been tested at full scale. The theory was sound, but theory and practice were very different things when you were trying to convince a star to die ahead of schedule. "Admiral," his communications officer called out, "Incoming transmission from the Council fleet. They're demanding our immediate surrender." Bay almost laughed. "Put them through." The main screen filled with the image of Supreme War Commander Malthanthor, a massive reptilian being whose species had conquered half the galaxy before joining the Council. His voice rumbled with authority when he spoke. "Human fleet, you are vastly outnumbered. Surrender now and your deaths will be quick. Continue this futile resistance and we will make your entire species suffer before we exterminate you." Admiral Bay adjusted his uniform and looked directly into the camera. "War Commander, thank you for the generous offer. We have a counter-proposal." "You are not in a position to make proposals," Malthanthor snarled. "Leave our system immediately." Bay continued as if the alien hadn't spoken. "Withdraw all Council forces to beyond the Outer Rim. Do this within the next 6 hours, or we will demonstrate why that would be the wise choice." The War Commander's laugh shook the bridge speakers. "You have 300 ships. We have 10,000. What demonstration could you possibly make?" Captain Ji-hoon Park and his Doomsday Squadron were already in position near the Proxima Centauri system. The system had no inhabited planets, no Council installations, nothing but a red dwarf star and some rocky debris. It was perfect for their purposes. "Squadron leaders, this is Doomsday Actual," Park said into his comm. "Target is confirmed clear of all life. Commence stellar termination protocol." His ship, the Guangzhou's Fury, launched a single torpedo toward Proxima Centauri. The weapon was no bigger than a fighter craft, but it carried Dr. Lim's most advanced dimensional cascade technology. The torpedo would destabilize the star's fusion reactions, causing it to collapse and explode in a matter of hours instead of millions of years. Torpedo away, his weapons officer reported. Impact in 17 minutes. Back with the main fleet. Admiral Bay was still talking to the Council forces. War Commander, in approximately 16 minutes, you're going to see something interesting. I suggest you monitor the Proxima Centauri system. What are you talking about? Malthanthor demanded. We're going to kill a star, Bay said simply, just to show you that we can. The alien commander's expression changed from arrogance to confusion. Stars cannot be killed. That is impossible. Impossible is a word that humans don't recognize, Bay replied. We've been doing impossible things for our entire history. Today we add stellar engineering to the list. Dr. Lim watched her instruments as the torpedo approached its target. The dimensional cascade weapon would create a pocket of altered spacetime around the star's core, accelerating fusion reactions beyond the star's ability to contain them. Cascade initiation in 30 seconds, she announced over the fleet comm. All ships confirm safe distance from target system. The Council fleet's sensors were focused on Proxima Centauri now, trying to understand what the humans planned to do. They detected the single small torpedo, but it seemed insignificant compared to the massive star it was approaching. Then the torpedo detonated. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the star began to change. Its light shifted from red to orange to yellow to white. The stellar surface became unstable, erupting with massive flares that stretched across millions of kilometers. What is happening? War Commander Malthanthor demanded from his flagship. His science officer, a brilliant crystalline being, studied the sensor readings with growing horror. The star's fusion reactions are accelerating. The core temperature is rising exponentially. It's impossible, but the star appears to be undergoing rapid collapse. Within 2 hours, Proxima Centauri exploded in a supernova that could be seen from dozens of neighboring systems. The explosion released more energy in a few seconds than most stars produced. In their entire lifetimes, the Council fleet watched in stunned silence as an entire solar system was obliterated by a single human weapon. This was a demonstration, Admiral Bay announced over the open communication channel. We destroyed an uninhabited system to prove our capabilities. The next target will not be so carefully chosen. Supreme War Commander Malthanthor felt something he had never experienced in 300 years of military service. Genuine fear. His species had conquered worlds and enslaved civilizations, but they had never faced an enemy willing to weaponize stellar phenomena. You're insane, he said finally. If you continue using such weapons, you'll destabilize the entire galactic arm. You'll kill billions of innocent beings? Then withdraw your fleet, Bay replied calmly. Because if you attack Earth, we're going to start targeting inhabited systems. Beginning with your capital worlds. Captain Park's squadron was already moving toward their next target, the Altair system, home to one of the Council's most important military bases. They wouldn't actually attack it, but the threat alone would demonstrate humanity's commitment. Sir, Park's sensor officer called out, the Council fleet is slowing down. Some ships are beginning to drop out of hyperspace. Dr. Lim monitored the quantum effects from her laboratory. The dimensional cascade weapons were working perfectly, but each use was like playing with the fundamental forces of the universe. One mistake could trigger a chain reaction that might spread beyond their control. Admiral, she called over the comm, I'm detecting instabilities in local spacetime. If we use too many cascade weapons in the same region, we could create a permanent rift in dimensional space. How many is too many? Bay asked. I don't know, Lim admitted. We're in completely uncharted territory here. The truth was that humanity was gambling with forces they didn't fully understand. But they were gambling with them anyway because the alternative was slavery. War Commander Malthanthor found himself in an impossible position. His fleet vastly outnumbered the humans, but numbers meant nothing against weapons that could destroy entire star systems. Even if he won the battle, the humans might trigger enough supernovas to make victory meaningless. Communication from the Hegemony Council, his aide reported. They're ordering us to halt our advance and reassess the situation. And from the Nexus Collective, another officer added. They're demanding immediate withdrawal of all forces. The Council species were panicking. Each of them had worlds and populations they needed to protect. The humans had demonstrated that they could kill stars, and by extension any planet orbiting those stars. "Sir," his science officer said quietly, "I've been analyzing the energy signatures from the Proxima event. If the humans have more than a few dozen of these weapons, they could theoretically destabilize every star system in the local galactic arm." Malthanthor closed his eyes and tried to think like a rational military commander. But rationality had no place in dealing with a species that treated mutual annihilation as an acceptable battle strategy. Admiral Bay waited patiently for the Council's response. Around him, his officers prepared for the next phase of the plan. If the Council chose to continue their attack, humanity would demonstrate just how far they were willing to go to remain free. The galaxy was about to learn that sometimes the most effective weapon wasn't the biggest gun or the strongest shield. Sometimes, the most effective weapon was the willingness to use it. The emergency session of the Galactic Council lasted for 3 days. Representatives from 12 species argued, pleaded, and demanded answers while the human fleet waited in the Sol system with weapons that could kill stars. For the first time in galactic history, the Council faced a decision they had never imagined making. President Mi-young Cho arrived at Nexus Prime aboard the diplomatic vessel Sol's Hope. She was the first human leader ever to set foot on the Council's capital world, and she came not as a supplicant but as an equal. Prime Minister Zeth Kohler met her at the landing platform, his silver face showing exhaustion and stress. Behind him stood the other Council leaders, beings who had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years and now found themselves negotiating with a species they had planned to enslave just days earlier. "President Cho," Zeth Kohler said formally, "the Council wishes to discuss terms." "Terms for what?" Cho asked pleasantly. "Terms for peaceful coexistence." Admiral Kyung-Soo Yoon watched the proceedings from his command ship. The newly formed Human Defense Forces fleet surrounded Nexus Prime, not as conquerors but as protectors. The irony wasn't lost on him. The galaxy's newest military force was already being asked to defend the same species that had tried to destroy humanity. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving distress calls from the Rigel system. Slavers are attacking the Kalani colonies." Yoon smiled grimly. The Kalani were one of the smaller species in the Council, often bullied by larger, more aggressive civilizations. Under the old system, the Council would have ignored their plight unless it served their political interests. "Dispatch the Third Fleet," Yoon ordered. "Full combat deployment. And send a message to the slavers. They have 1 hour to withdraw or face human intervention." In the Council chambers, President Cho was addressing the assembled representatives. Her words were being broadcast across the galaxy, carried by news networks to billions of beings who had never heard of humans until this week. "Honored delegates," Cho said, "humanity seeks not domination but partnership. We offer our friendship to all species willing to embrace the principles of freedom and self-determination." Diplomat Hae-won Kim worked tirelessly behind the scenes, drafting the documents that would reshape galactic civilization. The new treaties included concepts that had never existed in Council law: individual rights, democratic representation, the right of species to govern themselves without outside interference. "This is revolutionary," whispered Science Coordinator Velthera to her aide. "They're not just changing the power structure. They're changing the entire philosophical foundation of galactic society." The revolution was already spreading. On dozens of worlds, populations that had lived under Council rule for generations were demanding the same freedoms that humanity had fought for. The concept of self-determination was spreading like wildfire through the galaxy. War Minister Thakmor found himself in the strange position of asking humans for military assistance. His home system was facing rebellion from 3 different colony worlds, all demanding independence. "The situation is complicated," he explained to Admiral Yoon. "These colonies have been part of our empire for centuries. They're not equipped for self-governance." "That's not your decision to make anymore," Yoon replied, "but we'll help you negotiate a peaceful transition. Everyone benefits when conflicts are resolved without violence." The human approach to diplomacy was as revolutionary as their approach to warfare. Instead of imposing solutions through force, They mediated disputes and helped species find mutually beneficial agreements. Dr. So-Young Park established the Galactic Cultural Exchange Program, bringing together scientists, artists, and philosophers from across the galaxy. Her first project was ambitious, a joint research mission to explore the galactic core, crewed by representatives from 15 different species. "We've spent so much time focused on our differences," she explained to the mixed crew. "It's time we started exploring what we might accomplish. Together." The research mission discovered 3 new forms of sentient life and developed breakthrough technologies that benefited every species involved. It was the first truly collaborative effort in galactic history. Captain Min-Ho Choi found himself commanding a very different kind of fleet. His ship still carried weapons, but they also carried medical supplies, food, and emergency relief equipment. The human merchant marine had become the galaxy's first rapid response humanitarian force. "Sir," his communications officer called out, "tsunami warning on Vega Prime. The local government is requesting immediate assistance." "Set course for Vega Prime, maximum speed," Choi ordered. "And contact the Council Relief Services. Tell them we'll coordinate the rescue effort." Working together, human ships and Council vessels saved over 2 million lives from the Vegan tsunami. It was the first joint humanitarian mission in galactic history, and it wouldn't be the last. Lieutenant Da Un-Yang became the first human instructor at the Galactic Military Academy. Her classes on unconventional tactics and asymmetric warfare were popular with cadets from dozens of species. "The key to victory," she taught her students, "isn't having the biggest weapons or the strongest shields. It's having the will to fight for something that matters more than your own life." Her words inspired a new generation of military leaders who understood that true strength came from defending principles, not just territory. Engineer Yu Jin Song opened her asteroid shipyards to scientists from across the galaxy. The hidden facilities that had once built weapons of war were now constructing exploration vessels, research stations, and humanitarian relief ships. "War taught us how to build things quickly and efficiently," she explained to a delegation of alien engineers. "Peace gives us the chance to build things that actually matter." President Cho stood before the Galactic Assembly, the new democratic body that had replaced the authoritarian council. Representatives from over 50 species sat in the chamber, each with an equal voice in galactic governance. 2 years ago, she said, humanity faced a choice between freedom and survival. We chose freedom, and in doing so we discovered that the two are not opposites. True survival, the survival of everything that makes life worth living, requires freedom. The Assembly voted unanimously to adopt the Universal Declaration of Sentient Rights, a document based on human democratic principles but expanded to cover the diverse needs of galactic civilization. Admiral Yoon received a message from his old enemy, former war commander Malthan Thor. The reptilian warrior had become the elected leader of his home system and was working to transform his militaristic society into a peaceful democracy. "Admiral," the message read, "my people are struggling with the transition to democratic governance. We were warriors for so long that we've forgotten how to be anything else. Could you send advisors to help us learn?" Yoon smiled as he composed his reply. The species that had once threatened to exterminate humanity was now asking for help in learning human values. Dr. Yoonji Lim's research into dimensional physics led to breakthroughs in faster-than-light travel, clean energy generation, and medical technology. Her weapons research had saved humanity from slavery. Her peaceful research was now saving lives across the galaxy. "Science should serve life," she told the assembled researchers at the new Galactic Science Consortium. "We have the knowledge to solve any problem we face. The question is whether we have the wisdom to use that knowledge well." The galaxy that emerged from humanity's savage retaliation was unrecognizable from the one that had existed before. The old empire of fear and submission had been replaced by a commonwealth of free peoples working together toward common goals. Prime Minister Zeth Kohler, now serving as the elected president of the Galactic Assembly, often reflected on the changes. The humans had indeed astonished the entire Galactic Council, not just with their capacity for violence, but with their capacity for transformation. "They didn't just defeat us," he confided to his aide. "They made us better than we were, and in the end that was humanity's greatest victory. They had fought not just for their own freedom, but for the freedom of every sentient being in the galaxy. Their savage retaliation had become the foundation for a civilization based on hope instead of fear. The galaxy had learned that sometimes the most powerful weapon was the willingness to sacrifice everything for a principle, but more importantly, it had learned that the most lasting victory was the one that transformed enemies into allies and conquerors into partners in building something better than what came before.